At this point, I honestly can't tell if I'm becoming an ornery old bastard or if restaurant service in Little Rock is just that hilariously terrible. But the practice of being genuinely forgotten about by restaurant staff has become so common that there's nothing I can do except laugh. Also, the random number generator is still stuck on Asian restaurants, so let's do this shit. Or should I say, Sayaru Zo! Takaria El Palenke was recommended by viewers like you, so we went there to check them out, and let me start by telling you my prejudices against Mexican food. I have not, nor will I ever glaze it like many others do on YouTube. It can be good, it can be great, but it's usually mediocre, same as any other cuisine. I don't fetishize other cultures just for pressing masa, lard, and water into a mostly inconvenient bread. Takaria El Palenke is located in a strip mall, and the inside looks like a Mexican party city exploded. We went there and got an assortment of tacos and some chicken enchiladas. I asked if I could get the enchiladas but substitute the chicken for a different meat, and my server looked me dead in the eye and said, no. And that was pretty funny to me. So we ended up trying their chicken, barbacoa, and carnitas, and they were good except for the chicken, which had the texture of a stale kitchen sponge. So my instincts were right. But here's what I really didn't like about Takaria El Palenke. What can you judge a Mexican restaurant on besides the meat? Do you ever go, oh man, this Mexican place has the best shredded iceberg lettuce. You gotta try their diced tomatoes. No, it's the sauces, or in this case, the salsas. And we tried no less than 4 different salsas at Takaria El Palenke, and they were all horribly underseasoned and not even very acidic. One was hot as shit, but heat was the only flavor it had. Yeah, I don't know about this recommendation. I mean, from my experiences, the Mexican food in the state of Arkansas is pretty grim. So if this is what you're recommending, I can't imagine what you're trying to hide from me. Credit where it's due, they're cheap as shit and the meat was mostly decent, but Takaria El Palenke is a pretty mediocre 6.1 out of 10. Rock and Roll Sushi is a chain that spans much of the South and offers what I can only describe as Guy Fieri's version of Japanese cuisine. Look, I'm not some sushi nerd, and in fact I think sushi is being the single most autistic dish ever created. But I at least respect that its purpose is to take fish so fresh that you can eat it raw, and dress it with a few ingredients that accentuate the better parts of that flavor. Not take fish and drown it in sauces and accoutrements until you can't even taste it. I mean, whoever decided that sushi needs cream cheese needs to be brought up on charges as a war criminal. Anyway, we sampled some of their extreme donkey sauce sushi abominations, including the crowd surfer roll, the punk rock roll, and the Sweet Home Alabama roll. And wouldn't you know it, it tasted exactly like every other overly sweet, covered with panko breadcrumbs and mayo sushi rolls that you can find anywhere, including the grocery store. But for good measure, there were TVs playing Black Hole Sun, and we paid through the nose for it. Overpriced, terrible atmosphere, not great sushi, Guy Fieri approved, 4.4. In part 1 of this series, I reviewed K-Pot's All-You-Can-Eat Barbecue and concluded that it was fine, but I wished it wasn't hot as balls out that day and that I looked forward to returning for the hot pot. Well, I did, and my experience sucked. I mean, it all just fucking sucked, and I want to bring you down to my level and tell you all about it. Now, for starters, we were seated in a sort of out-of-the-way area of the restaurant, and they ignored us for close to 20 minutes, until I walked back to the host stand and let someone know. I don't think it's fair to judge a restaurant based on what I imagine to be an aberration, but I thought I'd bring it up just to be a petty bitch. This was immaterial anyway, because the service couldn't come close to salvaging my experience. So the way this works is you choose a broth and order things like meat, vegetables, and noodles and or rice to cook in your broth. There's a banchan bar with spices and sauces to customize how you want it. So if you don't like the food, it's your fucking fault. This all sounds good on paper, but there's a few problems with that formula. Firstly, many of the meat options weren't available. When we went there for barbecue, we could order whatever we wanted, but for hot pot, you can't? What's strange is that both options are the exact same price, so what the fuck? Secondly, and this is a much larger problem, you might be wondering how my experience could possibly be terrible when I'm responsible for what I create. And the answer to that is that it doesn't matter what I add to my broth if the broth tastes like fucking nothing. I went with their standard pork bone broth, and it may as well have been a pot of water. I've heard so much about the glorious splendor that is Korean hot pot, and I hope to have the genuine experience someday, but there is simply no way this is what all the fuss is about. They also didn't have anything spicy to bring it to life anyway. A genuinely awful, expensive dining experience, 4.3. Yeah, I'm gonna rate this place based solely on vibes. See, breakfast, especially while dining out, means a lot to me. And like me, it all resides on a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you have the classic stainless steel American diner. This sort of place where the griddle has a mountain of home fries ready and your waitress refills your cup of coffee without even asking. None of this, would you like some more? The cups are porcelain, there's a pie case and a cigarette machine next to a gumball machine by the door. It's the sort of vibe that places like Denny's and Waffle House emulate, the feeding trough of the working man. And on the other end of that spectrum is the brunch spot. The sort of place where your sister takes her friend to get their ovaries tingled over overpriced mimosas and gossip about how Ashley Nicole cheated on her husband with her daughter's soccer coach and Brandy is back on the methamphetamines. And Big Bad Breakfast doesn't really fall into either end of the spectrum because they seem to be trying to please both ends. On the one hand, they're called Big Bad Breakfast, like the business is taking creatine and can power lift a Nissan Stanza. And they have totally extreme menu items like the Screamin' Demon and the Big Bad BLT. But at the same time, they have 12 kinds of mimosas, eggs Benedict, and half their menu does or can have avocado on it. I got the standard sausage and eggs breakfast with some biscuits and gravy, and it was all just okay. The biscuit was the better side of decent, but the gravy was a little too gloopy for my liking and was under-seasoned. And that's fine, it's all fine, this place is fine. Big Bad Breakfast is just getting by in the middle. Totally inoffensive and forgettable. It's the sort of place you're okay with taking your son to, but hope he doesn't grow up to be the sort of person who would open a place like this. 5.9. Initially, I felt like jamming a giant wiener down my throat and wanted to check out Fassler Hall, the German joint downtown. But it was rammed for St. Patrick's Day. So we ducked into a strip mall and found ourselves at Ahi Ramen Bar. Now, I've had trouble finding a good bowl of ramen here in the South and had high hopes when the server placed 2 steaming bowls in front of us. The eggs looked jammy, the chashu pork looked like actual chashu pork and not slimy boiled bacon. The noodles even looked like they were made fresh and weren't falling apart. But then I tucked into a bowl of disaster. Because just as was the case with K-Pot, I took a slurp of broth that tasted like genuine nothing. No pork bone savoriness, no aromatics. I think I detected a hint of garlic, but nothing more. But here's where the whole affair goes completely off the rails. Because while I went with the standard tonkatsu ramen that tasted like nothing, Mrs. Raiden went with the spicy tonkatsu, which is the same broth with some chili oil added. Now, to convey what happened next, I really need to drill down into the first-person perspective here. I taste the broth, and confused, my head slowly inclines upward toward the 2 cooks working on the kitchen line. They are both Hispanic, which I only mention because Mrs. Raiden's spicy tonkatsu ramen tasted like tacos. It tasted like someone took one of those taco seasoning packets from the store and dumped it into her ramen. Why does this ramen taste like tacos? Are they racist? Is the ramen racist? Am I racist? I just came in for some ramen. Why am I thinking about racism? What is happening here? Mrs. Raiden ended up eating her ramen with as little broth as humanly possible, and overall the experience sucked. It was a shame really because Ahi Ramen Bar got many elements of a good bowl of ramen right, but with a shitty broth that all becomes academic. My search for ramen in the South continues and I'm giving Ahi Ramen Bar a 4.9. Christ, I know a lot of this is just for fun, but I've had some downright terrible dining experiences in Little Rock lately. Let me know what other spots I should hit up and I'll see you in the next one.